Hello, AP Psychology students, and welcome to the last section of Chapter 9. We're looking at learning in the mind. Which you're probably thinking, wait a second. You told me at the beginning of the chapter that behaviorists, or the other one, didn't care what happened in the mind. It was all about observable behaviors and reinforcers and all that. It was the most scientific part of psychology. You're correct. I did. Yeah, maybe we should just skip this section. Okay. Well, I can't do that. There are things, there are psychologists who looked at it and wanted to know the connection between reinforcements and punishments and classical conditioning and the mind. So there's something called latent learning. Edward Tolman and C.H. Hodzik let rats just wander around a maze without reinforcement. So usually they give them a little treat if they go the right way, or maybe they zap them if they go the wrong way. I'm not sure if they did that. Maybe. But they just decided, let's just let the rats hang out. Let them vibe in the maze. And then we'll reinforce them. And so the next, after they wander around and kind of pick up what's going on in the maze, then they reinforce them. And then they use that as the experimental group. And then they just had rats placed in the maze with the same reinforcements. The ones who just wandered around without any reinforcement or any purpose completed the maze faster. So the one group of rats caught up to the reinforced group after only 10 days of wandering. And so they weren't reinforced. And so it basically shows that if you're aware, if you're conscious, you are learning. If you're paying attention, even if you're not being reinforced or there's not a punishment going on, they learn without being reinforced or overtly pushed in a certain way. So it's kind of like what we talked about, like driving places when you don't really know how to get there. You don't use Google or whatever, and you just kind of drive because you know how to get there. So what is acquired in latent learning is knowledge about responses and their consequences. And so there is something to this, just being conscious and paying attention. You're learning without reinforcement. So then you have social cognitive learning theory, where we're going to look at the societal factors, the culture, what goes on in the mind, and the potential consequences, good or bad, all kind of determine our behavior. This emerged in the 1940s and it basically said the most human learning was acquired by observing other people in a social context rather than standard conditional procedures. Sometimes in class you see a teacher yell at one kid for what they do, and you go, "I'm not going to do that. No, 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 no. I don't want that to happen to me." You don't actually need the reinforcement or the punisher to happen directly to you. You can learn vicariously. So in the 60s or 70s, 60s and 70s, the human capacity for higher level cognitive processes was added. And so we're subject to the laws of classical and operant conditioning, but society also dictates it, and you still have free will. You still have a choice to choose what to do. I mean, sometimes we do stupid things. We know we could get in trouble, but you still do them because it might be fun. Send it. So we have our attitudes, we have our beliefs, we have our expectations, and we can live through the same event and come away with completely different lessons. You can go through the exact same thing. You can win a ball game, or you can go to a concert, and you might think it's the best thing ever. And somebody else is like, "Oh, that was terrible. That was torture." Whoa! It's all about your perspective. It's all about kind of society and what's going on in your head. When you hear social cognitive learning theory, just the name you need to associate is Albert Bandura. Albert Bandura. He was the guy that studied, he put the little boys in a room and they watched violent videos, and then he let them play with Bobo or something like that, some wibby wobbly like doll, and they beat the tar out of it, and they're like, "Oh, see, it causes violence," and turns out the kids just like to beat up things. So, learning by observing. We learn a lot by watching others. Observational learning is very, very key. It's also called vicarious conditioning or vicarious modeling. Bandura performed studies on kids who watched videos of Rocky and Johnny, and then kids imitated the violent acts. And so it's like, hey, they observed it, they're going to do it. However, correlation is not always causation. They've reframed it. People can imitate positive acts as well. And so, it's not always a bad thing. You see someone pick up a piece of trash, maybe the next time you're walking down the hall, you see another piece, you pick it up yourself. And so you can pass on good things as well. Observational learning is really critical in athletics, anything that's physical or kinesthetic. It's hard to explain how to do things, but sometimes if you just show You know, like when you bump in volleyball, you gotta look down and do all that stuff. I don't know, I'm making that up. Never really played volleyball or coached it, but I was trying to broaden my horizons from basketball and baseball. So I'm gonna skip that because it's copyrighted. So the case against media and violence, you know that these cause all the crimes, right? They cause everything. Meta-analysis shows that the greater exposure to violence in movies and TV, the stronger the likelihood of a person's behaving aggressively, even after controlling for social class, intelligence, and other factors. Or children and adults who are habitually aggressive like to watch violent shows. They don't know. What came first, the chicken or the egg? Do violent kids like violent movies, or do violent movies make violent kids? We don't know. You know what? Teach right from wrong, enjoy life, be happy. That's all I got. If you have any questions, let me know.